Anyone recognize this game? Yes. It's called Jenga. Jenga. Jenga actually is a Swahili word, and it means to build. And the way this game works, there's 54 blocks, and you can play it with other players or you can play it as a solitaire, but you built this tower, and the idea is you pull a block out and you stack it up, and then the next person goes and the next person goes and the next person goes until it falls down. And you win by being the last person that goes a little bit higher without it falling down. So that's the game of Jenga. And I think it's kind of, in some ways, for some of us, the game of life also. How do we get a little bit higher, do a little bit more, a little bit more? So welcome to week 3 of our series, The Creator in You. Every week we've been talking about how do we create our lives? How do we create a life that is the fullest expression of that divine seed that was planted within us? So we began with the seed and how do we nourish that seed in the soils of our consciousness so that it will thrive and blossom. Whether it blossoms, whether it withers, it's all dependent on what is the soil that we plant that seed into. And then we talked about last week the root system, putting that taproot in, connecting with the divine, and then allowing those lateral roots to be our values, our beliefs, all those things happening beneath the surface. This is what we made last week. It's kind of fun. Everyone put their values on it. This is our root system. And we don't see it, it's invisible, but it is the way that all of that nourishment from that rich consciousness of the soil gets expressed. And then something magical happens. And that's where we are this week. Something magical happens, a little sprout. The first time that invisible substance expresses into the light, this little sprout of possibility, this little sprout of manifestation, and it grows and it grows and it grows into a seedling, into a sapling, and eventually into a mature, beautiful tree that produces more of those little seeds. So this is the journey that we are on, is how do we intentionally create that tree of life within us so that it guides us and we can follow that inner divine blueprint that was given to us. So this week, we're talking about that trunk, the system, the structure from which everything else, all the branches, all the leaves, all the fruit, all those seeds, all of those depend on having a structure to allow everything else to grow. So back when my family lived in Colorado, I had a friend and he shared with me the prayer practice of his family. This is a practice they had honored for generations. And they would look for the tallest tree. When they had a prayer they wanted to offer, they would look for the tallest tree. And where we lived, that was usually a ponderosa pine tree. They grow tall and straight. So they would look around the forest, they'd find the tallest tree, and they would bring their prayers there to the base of the tree, to the bark of the tree, and they would offer their prayer into the tree with gratitude, knowing that that tree would then take that prayer up through that trunk and out to its branches so it could be closer to the Creator. And I always thought that was a really beautiful image. The piece I loved the most was, he said, anytime they saw an eagle at the top of that tree, it was a sign to them that their prayer had been received and it was being delivered off into the heavens. So anytime you saw an eagle perched at the top of the tree, they would thank the eagle for being that messenger, delivering those prayers to the infinite. The other thing I loved about that story was he said that when the eagle took those prayers to the Creator, it didn't take it and remove it from the tree. The tree still remembered what that prayer was. And therefore, every prayer lived forever in the memory of that tree. And that's why that was so sacred to him, is for generations, his ancestors. He could feel the prayers, the hopes, the dreams of his ancestors in those trees. And as he shared his hopes and dreams for the future, he knew that his descendants would be able to come to that tree, and that tree would remember. So today is about that structure. That structure. What are the systems that allow us to take that which is invisible and bring it forth into form as we look at this tree of life? What are the systems, the practices, the disciplines that allow us to express all the richness that is beneath the surface? So that is where we're going this week. And that brings us back to our Jenga game. Here we go. I don't know. Can I move this? We're going to see. Look at this. This is kind of fun, right? Ooh, look at that. Please don't fall over. Please don't fall over. So we have our Jenga game here. So in Unity, we talk, if we were to look at Jesus as the example, and that's what we do in Unity. We look at him not as the great exception. We look at him as the great example. What does it look like when that seed of possibility, that divine blueprint is fully 100% purely expressed in human physical manifestation? We look to Jesus as the great example of what is possible for us when we live into Christ consciousness. That is our aspiration. And we could represent it here by looking at, what does it look like to have structural integrity? Integrity in what we're building. So integrity with the roots that we put out there, those roots that are grounded in spirit. What does it look like when we bring that value into physical expression through our actions? This is what Christ consciousness looks like. It is solid. It gives us a foundation. It gives us a base. This is what it means to be expressing our potential on earth as it is in heaven, in the physical manifestation as it is in the spiritual realm. Right? In the realm of the of absolute reality and relative reality and absolute reality. So here it is manifest. It is an expression of that which is pure and holy and sacred. As within, so without, as below the roots. This is our tree of life. As below, expressing above. That it is a reflection. That which is invisible expresses into the visible. So here we have, I'm going to call this Jesus Jenga. This is my Jesus Jenga right here. So we can play Jesus Jenga today. So imagine each of these blocks as being one of those values that we talked about last week. Like maybe the value is truth. Maybe the value is compassion. Maybe the value is fun. It's one of my favorites. And then what would that look like? What does that look like when those values express in physical reality? So fun might be that we play Jesus Jenga on Sunday morning. What is the action? Compassion, serving others, caring for others. When we do that, we are aligned. Truth, we speak the truth. We're honest with each other. We're authentic with each other. We're transparent with each other. When the action matches the value, we are in structural integrity. And that structural integrity gives a delivery system for everything else that we create. All of our manifestations, all the fruit that we want, it's all got to come through this trunk. It's all got to come through this system. So we have all these different values. We want to express them. Jesus did that when he said, truth is, I'm going to speak words of truth. The truth will set you free. The value of curiosity. So Jesus would ask questions. I always thought that was kind of weird. Jesus asking questions. What do you want me to do? He goes to the blind person. What do you want me to do? I was like, well, clearly he wants to be healed, but Jesus didn't assume that. He asked questions. He was curious. So how do those values get expressed? Wisdom. He would always go off to the mountaintop. He's like, you guys, you're going to be fine. You go in the boat. I'm going to go to the mountaintop. Because that value of wisdom would express through meditation and prayer and communion with the divine. Peace. How does peace express? It's the calm in the storm. There's this big storm and everyone else is freaking out, but Jesus is taking a little nap. He's good. What does it look like when our values get expressed? So these are the daily practices that create congruence with our roots and our values. That's what this week is about. So this is what we aspire to, that Christ consciousness. But for most of us, we're not quite there. Most of us, we're playing the game in our own different way. So how do you win at Jenga? You win by sacrificing structural integrity. Ooh, you sacrifice the structure so that you can go a little higher. Like, what do you sacrifice? What do you sacrifice? Faith, I don't know. What do I sacrifice that? If I'm going to sacrifice that, it lets me to go a little higher. I'm going to just do it my way. I might be guided one way, but I'm going to do it another way. Maybe truth is inconvenient right now. Maybe I could go a little higher if I fudged a little bit. If I wiggle the truth or if I schmooze a little bit, I can get ahead. I might be sacrificing that value, but it has a payoff for me. So we start negotiating with our values. And every time we do that, we weaken the structure. And maybe there's a payoff, but what is the cost? It may seem like it's not that big a deal, just this one time. Oh, at what point do we hit that straw that makes the whole thing fall apart? So maybe we value truth, but we fudge the truth a little. Maybe we value kindness, but then we got that zinger that's really funny. And after all, I was only kidding. So maybe we have a value of authenticity, but I'm going to dampen it down a little bit because I want to make sure you like me. I want to make sure people like me. Maybe I value forgiveness, but just not for that person. Everyone but them, because you don't know what they did, like that's the exception. And every time we do that, we're sacrificing that structural integrity. I value generosity. And as soon as I win the lottery, I'm going to be really generous. I value it, but are we expressing those values? I value my relationship, but when that difficult conversation comes up, it's uncomfortable. So maybe next week, because that's going to be hard. So what are the things we value? Are we honoring those? How this one? I believe in setting healthy boundaries. And so I'm only going to do it one more time. I'm only going to say, one more time I'll do it. And then I'm not ever going to do it again because healthy boundaries. Like how many times do we say, okay, well, maybe this time, because I don't want to keep pushing against it. So where do we sacrifice that integrity? So Jesus, he said to the crowds and he said to his disciples, he's talking about the scribes and the Pharisees who were the ones teaching them about how to live like this. And he says, the scribes and the Pharisees, they sit on Moses' seat and therefore do whatever they teach you. Do what they say. Follow it. But don't do what they do. Do what they say, but don't do what they do, for they do not practice what they teach. They tie up heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on the shoulders of others, but they themselves are unwilling to lift a finger to move them. And then he followed that up with what is known as the 7 woes. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees. Here it is. Scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites in Matthew, over and over and over and over. These are all references where he's saying, woe to you for doing this. Woe to you for doing this. When you are saying one thing, believing one thing, and doing something else, it is woe to you. And he had some choice words to say: hypocrites, snakes, brood of vipers, blind guides, child of hell. That's what Jesus, he had some feelings. He had some feelings about the people that were out there teaching one thing and doing something totally different. So woe to us when we know the truth, we believe the truth, and we do something different. And it's not a judgment. It's not a punishment. It's just, that's what it feels like. Woe is me. I've been there. You've been there, where it's like, okay, I'm just out of sync right now. And I need to put this thing back together. So when I was in my late 20s, I had one of those fabulous opportunities to have my life fall apart. You ever have those where it's like, okay, I went through a divorce, I lost my job, had to sell my house, my dogs went with the ex-husband, like everything fell apart. Friends disappeared. And it was like everything that I thought was important, like little things here, little things there. And ultimately, it was just Boom. Have you had those moments where, okay, that was the last piece, and it all falls apart? So in the book of Isaiah, uh, it says, "Woe is me, I am undone." You ever felt undone? That's what it feels like to be undone. As I am a man of unclean lips, I live among people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. I know, I know that seed, that potential, and I'm doing something that's totally different. And so, woe is me, I am undone. And this is what happens. So, we call it a dark night of the soul. And it's hard. But the great thing about a dark night of the soul, ask any child, and they will tell you that when this happens, you know what you do? You scoop it all up and you build it again. And you look at, okay, where is my faith? Oh, there it is. I think I'm going to put that one down here at the base. You know, I'm going to rebuild this thing. I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to have courage as I move through this. And we take all these pieces, and brick by brick, we're able to build something new. And maybe, if we're intentional about it, we can build something better. So that's the spiritual journey. And that's what this week is all about. How do you take these pieces? How do you take these values? How do you take these beliefs, these things that you know in your heart to be true? And how do you stack them in a way where it becomes the foundation of everything that you do? You know, how do we build this so that it's as close to that as it can possibly be? And maybe we notice that it hasn't all fallen apart, but there are just pieces that are a little out of whack. So sometimes it's just a matter of saying, you know what, this one got loose. So I'm gonna make a apology. I'm gonna do my retribution. I'm gonna make it right. I'm gonna put that one back in alignment. I'm gonna see what's out of sync, and I'm gonna put it back in place in a way that's stronger than it was before. That's the game. That's the game. And if we can be playful with it, it's a beautiful game. So take your right hand like this, put it out, and draw in your hand a letter A. So imagine this letter A stands for awareness. Awareness of your values, awareness of your beliefs, awareness of what is important to you. And then in your other hand, take it out like this and draw a letter A in that hand. And imagine that this letter A stands for your actions. And then we take that awareness and we take our actions and then bring those together. And this is integrity when they're aligned. And it's really easy to find ourselves in this place where it fudge it just a little, just a little, just a little. And anytime we're out of integrity, we can notice it because we're aware. We can notice it and take the steps that we need to take to make things right again. This is the goal. This is the game. Mother Teresa once said, "People are often unreasonable and self-centered." You have every reason to point your finger at them, to be angry, to be resentful. People are often unreasonable. They're self-centered. Forgive them anyway. Forgive them anyway. People, she says, are, if you're kind, she says, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Why are you being so nice? What you trying to get out of that? What you trying to get out of that? I used to have people say, you know, Mindy, you're so smiley. I figured you must have some really deep, dark issues to be compensating like that. Like, what would make someone have to try to seem so happy? If you're kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives, but be kind anyway. If you're honest, people may cheat you. They may take advantage of your honesty. They may call you a sucker. Can't believe you so trusting. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. It's not fair. What did she do to deserve that? What did he do to deserve that? If you are happy, people may be jealous, but be happy anyway. The good that you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. This is how we build a life that is aligned with the truth of who we are. Because she says, in the end, it's not about them anyway. It's between you and God. In the end, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. What is the structure that you're bringing into your life? Are you playing the ego's game of sacrifice a little here so I can go a little higher? Sacrifice a little here so I can go a little higher. It's that keeping up with the Joneses. It's like, maybe I have to sacrifice a little, but I'm gonna have more. I'm gonna get to show you. I get to be, am I better than you? Better than you? And then we take turns. Like, oh, well, I can go a little higher and I can sacrifice here and then I can go a little higher and a little higher. And that's the game our ego likes to play. Who can have the most? Who can go the highest? Who can be the best without having it all fall apart? That's the ego's game. But that's not the game of consciousness. There's a quote by Nietzsche. This is one of my favorite quotes, who says, whenever I climb, whenever I'm trying to grow, whenever I climb, I am followed by a dog named Ego. Next dog I have, I think I'm going to name it Ego. Whenever I climb, whenever I'm trying to grow, I'm followed by this dog named Ego. And is that dog pulling at the leash, like taking you places you don't really want to go? Is that ego a bad dog, taking you into all kinds of trouble? Or can we train that ego? Can we train that dog to listen to the master? Can we train that dog to pay attention to where our higher self is directing us? I want my ego to be a good dog. Don't you? I want my ego to be a good dog. So the invitation this week is train that dog. We're going to train that dog to strengthen our spiritual core, to build that structure through a commitment to being in integrity, to pray, to meditate, to do the things that align with what we know to be our truth, to forgive, to love, to serve, to be compassionate. There's an author, Jim Rohn, and one of the things he's known for saying, he said, if you show me your daily routine, I will show you your future. Show me what you do, and I will tell you what you are becoming. Show me your trunk, and I will tell you what fruit you will have. Show me what's here, and I'll show you what's there. If you see something that's out of alignment, you just bring it back into alignment. So this is actually from the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. This is his to-do list. Show me your to-do list. Show me your day. Show me what you plan, and I'll tell you what your future will be. So Ben Franklin had this thing every day. I'm going to get up. I'm going to rise, wash, and address powerful goodness. He called God powerful goodness. I'm going to connect with that. I'm going to work. I'm going to read. I'm going to work. I'm going to put things in their place. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to ask, what good have I done today? In the morning, I'm going to ask, what good shall I do this day? And in the end, I'm going to ask, what good have I done this day? And then he decided that he wanted to really master what he called the virtues. He identified 12 virtues that to him were his priorities. These were the virtues that he found to be most important to him, and he wanted to embody them. So, this is how he said this, and I think it's kind of funny. So it says, it was about this time I conceived the bold and arduous project of arriving at moral perfection. So that was his goal, nothing short of Moral perfection is what I am going towards. And so he's identified these 12 values. And every day, this is from his autobiography. He had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day of the week. And he had little boxes. And he would focus on one every week. So he might focus on temperance or silence or order or frugality. He would focus on one every week. And every day at the end of the day, he would review his day and say, was I frugal? Was I sincere? Was I moderate? Was I clean? Am I acting in a way that's in alignment with these virtues? And if he could go all day without violating that virtue, he would leave the box empty. But if he couldn't, he'd put an X in it. And his goal was to go all that week focusing on that virtue without violating that virtue. And then the next week he would go to the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And that was his practice, to focus on one every single week. And he got to the end, and if you've ever read his autobiography, it says he had a friend of his. He was sharing his process and his goal of moral perfection. And his friend said, Hey, Ben, I got an idea for a 13th virtue. Maybe you could put humility in there also. And Ben Franklin went, you know what? I think that's a really good idea. And so the 13th virtue is humility. And he worked on that one, and he worked on that one. And he says, that one was the hardest of all. That was the hardest one. And he worked on it, and he worked on it, and he worked on it. But he said, you know what? Eventually he mastered it, and he was the most humble person of anyone he knew. So we work on ourselves. We work on ourselves. We do the best we can. So the question is, how shaky is your foundation? Is there anything that needs to shift, anything that needs to change so that we can come back into greater spiritual alignment? Is there someone that you need to forgive? Is there a conversation you need to have? Is there something you need to clean up in your life? Is there a discipline you need to take on? I want to honor my body, and am I taking care of it? Do I need to change? Do I need to create some routines, some structure? So that's the invitation, is to pick one thing and focus on it this week. Implement it, notice if it needs to shift. And then, give yourself a little checkbox when you do a good job each day. What's the structure? What's the system? What's your plan for taking all that is below and creating your system structure to allow you to go to the places that you feel called to go? What is the structure that will support you? So this afternoon, we have Crafternoons here at Unity of Dallas. And today for Crafternoons, outside the sanctuary, we have lots of little Jenga blocks. So you are invited to decorate a Jenga block. And the invitation is, on one side, put something you value. And on the other side, write down what is the action that aligns with that. So if your value is love, maybe what you're going to do is forgive someone or acknowledge someone, or I don't know, you decide. So these are going to be outside. I invite you to play with that. And we're also going to have this is our church Jenga. So if you want to get creative and decorate a block for that, you're invited to do that as well. You can take one for yourself. You can also leave one, and we'll have Jenga games out there. We can go out there and play with each other and have a little fun as we embody the ideas of today. So take a deep breath in. Let us affirm together. I prioritize my spiritual alignment. Together, I prioritize my spiritual alignment. My ego is a good dog. My ego is a good dog. And so it is. And so it is. Good dog, ego. So I'd like to take a deep breath in. So we take this into a moment of meditation. Take a deep breath into the belly of your being, into that solar plexus, into your core. Feel that breath of life moving through the core of being. The place where your will meets God's will. Place of strength. Place of courage. Allow yourself to feel the support of this core. Feel the integrity of this core, fully aligned, fully present to the divine potential that is growing and strengthening from sprout to seedling to sapling to tree. Every day, step by step, action by action, we are living the teachings. We make commitments to embodying our spiritual practice. We make commitments to doing the things that we know will support us. Prayer, meditation, connection and service and generosity. We celebrate these values. We feel the nourishment of these values moving up through us into this core, strengthening, expanding, and expressing through every area of our lives. So we move into the silence, breathing in with every breath, reinforcing that strong, resilient, whole spiritual core. In the silence, feel it in the silence. Take a deep breath in. And as you release it, feel your wholeness. Feel your congruence. Feel that spiritual integrity at the core of your being. And know that the work that we do to create this alignment, it empowers us, it strengthens us, and it emanates from us into this field where we are able to emanate order, structure, congruence in a way where others are uplifted in our presence, where others can be inspired to greater wholeness themselves. And so as we send our hopes and our dreams into this community, into this prayer box representing our community, we hold those hopes and dreams for ourselves, and we share this energy of congruence, this energy of faith, this energy of love with every person in our community, with every prayer, with every hope, with every dream, with every concern that is offered through this prayer box, through our prayers, spoken and unspoken. We are wholly complete, and from that wholeness, we bring wholeness to others. We bring love to others. We are so grateful to be part of this growing, thriving, aligned community. And so it is.